Howdy folks, Hellcrix here for episode 3. What we have here is the Warhammer-6R Heavy Mech, Battlemech. 70 tons. It's a pretty decent mech per se. One of my favorites. As you probably noticed in the pictures, I have 8 of them. So yeah, that kind of tells you how much I like these things. Alright, for a 70-ton mech, it's a 4.6 mover, doesn't have jump jets. It's just it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none per se. Just have to say that. In its standard form, uh, in the standard form, comes with 2 PPCs, 2 medium lasers, an SRM-6, 2 small lasers, and 2 machine guns. What I always like to say, this mech suffers from wanting to do too many jobs but not able to do all the jobs well. Alright, and I'll explain that. Now, with a mech that has 18 heat sinks, I find this mech actually runs pretty cool. I don't understand why people say it's a hot mech, it runs too hot, they blow it up all the time. I've never had that problem because just learn heat management, and this mech runs cool. You just have to understand how to use it. In the standard form, you got the 2 PPCs. That's going to create 20 heat. You got 18 heat sinks. So the problem it runs is, unless you find this mech a place to hunker down in, say, some woods, some place where it doesn't have to move, it's going to get hot. So you're forced to do this one thing. Alternate firing 2 PPCs, then 1 PPC. 2 PPCs, 1 PPC. That's just how you're going to have to do it. Because when you fire 2, and if you walk, you're going up 3 on the heat scale. No detriment to that, but the next turn, if you do that again, you're going to be moving slower, and people don't seem to catch on, and that you just need to do that. Just like the next turn, I'm only going to fire 1. That's what you have to do with the Warhammer. Then things really start get interesting is when the mentality that I have to fire everything. I got to alpha strike every turn. That way I can destroy my enemies in one blast. The number of games I've ever played where actually we're firing all your weapons and killing your opponent in one barrage, one alpha strike, is down into probably less than 1%. And those 1%, you just happen to get lucky with a rolling snake eyes, the magic BB, and then hitting through crit someplace and doing 3 engine hits. Or they hit an ammo someplace located in the center torso or right torso, depending on the angle that you're shooting at. That's typically why the alpha strike. So they did it once, so they got to do it every turn. It doesn't work. You can't do that. So pull your hand off the firing button and step away and don't do that. Just don't do it. Because when you get closer, suddenly you're going to have that SRM. You're going to have those medium lasers are now into the mix. That's going to be another, 10 heat. And you get these individuals that want to fire both PPCs and both medium lasers and the SRM. And next thing you know, they're a big, giant, blooming, glowing target out there, and there's like, oh geez, I got all these negatives now to shoot, all these negatives to move, and then oh geez, I have to roll for my ammo explosion, and they blow themselves up. That could be a problem. Unless you're facing someone like me that likes to run infernals, it's like, oh, you're running hot, here, have some infernal missiles also, you're on fire now, 6 more heat, there you go, start cooking. And so you have to do this. When you get closer, you're going to have to shut off one of those PPCs. You can only fire 1. Then you're back to the same thing again, where you have to shut off some weapons the next turn to cool off. So you're never going up the heat scale. I'm perfectly fine going up 2 or 3 in the heat scale because there's no detriment there. It's when suddenly you are getting past that and you're getting all the problems, and that's when you're going to have the effects, like I just told you, is going to happen. And obviously, with the small lasers and machine guns, these are more or less kind of be your like your anti-infantry, like the machine guns. It's kind of made for, in some ways, city fighting, because where you're going to have a lot of infantry and buildings and stuff, then you unload them with the machine guns. But I find 90% of the time, until you get almost point blank range, those machine guns are just wasted tonnage, and you're just increasing your chance of getting an ammo explosion. A number of times I've hit machine gun ammo and explode a mech because of machine gun ammo. Seriously, no. I'm not a big fan of machine guns at all. Leave that to some other stuff. So that's where we're going to get into looking at some of the variants. Now, got a couple of variants here. You got the 6D, which supports less weapons, lacking the machine guns, good thing, as well as the SRM-6 system. So they get rid of the machine guns and the SRM, so you're knocking off 6 tons right there. So what are you going to do with those 6 tons? Well, you put 2 more into heat sinks, and now you get 20. And then you put the rest, it looks like you put the rest into armor. Not a bad deal, because then suddenly you actually have a lot of armor to do the job. And you can take some hits, because that's one of the problems with the Warhammer. It's got some weak, basically it's got a lot of weak armor on it, because it's been stripped off to put all these weapon systems that really don't do you much good most of the time. And let's see, we got the Davian uses the 6K variant, which retains the missile system but adds 2 heat sinks in place of the machine gun. So you're taking 2 machine guns off in the ammo, and then you're taking that 2 tons and making 2 more heat sinks. I'm good with that. That's not a problem, because then you're alleviating some of that heat problem that you had from before. Makes sense. And then there's the House Lyos 6L variant, which replaces the machine gun. So you take 2 tons, so the 2 tons from the machine guns, which is the machine guns and the ammo, and you just give it 2 flamers. Well, flamers are kind of nice, but once again, it's a short range 3 hex system, and you got to get in real close. But if you hit with a flamer, you're going to give your opponent some heat. So if you got opponents that like to run hot mechs, suddenly somebody with a flamer or a infernal missiles, are giving that person a very bad day. They're not going to like you, not like you at all. Which then comes into my favorite customization with this mech. I really like to drop the medium laser, not the medium lasers, but the 2 small lasers and the machine guns, which gives you basically there's 3 tons, and give it 2 medium lasers and replacing the machine guns and the small lasers, and leaving you with 1 ton left over. And I just throw that into more armor. So you get 16 more points of armor, which I usually put into the legs. So you can upgrade those leg armor a bit. It needs it. Still kind of suffers in one way from the heat problem, like I said before, but what you can do is once you get in closer, you have that SRM, and you got those 4 medium lasers, which is 16 heat, and then you got 18 heat sinks. So you can move and shoot those short range stuff really close and not worry about having those PPCs firing. And you get more shots that way. The damage output is pretty much the same, but you're moving into not having the heat problems that you had before. And you can get in close and not have to worry about the detriment of the standard PPC with its minimum range restraints, which give you minuses to hit. All right. So that's one of my favorite things to do. Another variant I like to do is drop. You can drop the SRM-6 and totally get rid of that one, so that frees up 4 tons. Give it another medium laser, so you now have 5. So you got 5 times 3 is 15. Walking puts you at 17, so now you can get in close with 5 medium lasers and not have to worry about heat. All right, and then you can take that extra tonnage and throw it all into armor. All right, which is kind of nice. All right, so you're doing a lot better in that aspect. So that's kind of things that I look at doing. The basically the tactics I always like to do with this thing is I use it for the Warhammer in most battles. I like to hang back with it because you got those 2 PPCs and you're going to be alternating fire. Is you sit there, find yourself a place to get into some cover or some trees and not worry about moving, so you can put all your usage into putting energy downrange and hitting with 10, maybe 20 points of damage per turn. And if you have a couple other mechs, like a couple medium mechs that are pretty fast, they might be concentrating on trying to hit those medium mechs, and they're going to be ignoring the Warhammer. And this is where the Warhammer comes into the play, is that after a lot of mechs are beat down, they got a lot of open spots on them, you can move this mech in, and then you start hitting people with that short range stuff, and just start the crit train. Because with that SRM-6, you hit with, let's say, 4 missiles, and they got an open internal structure here, you're gonna have a good chance of doing a lot of crit chances. And when you get in crit chances, you're going to be knocking out systems and even having a chance of hitting that ammo here and there, which really puts into somebody's day real quick. So the Warhammer is a great fire support mech with those 2 PPCs, and then when the battle has progressed enough where other mechs armor has been knocked down and this mech hasn't been shot at, its limited lower armor levels make it actually a decent mech then, where it can go in and just start knocking face, because it's basically fresh and on par with what it was facing earlier in the battle. So don't commit the Warhammer too soon. Don't get it in too close until the time when you deem it necessary and say, all right, we can do this, and move in and just start hammering your targets. I hope this gives you some ideas what you might want to do with the Warhammer in the future, maybe some changes you might want to make, and hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll talk to you later.